on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
Which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
Good evening, it's 9 o'clock. I'm Alex Armstrong. Tonight.
But I took and relied on that advice
was wrong,
and that advice was wrong.
Not long enough, was it? Because Angela Rayner is coming back one way or another. The Prime Minister is so utterly weak and spineless, his disgraced former Deputy Prime Minister has got him over a barrel. Also,
it included widespread abuse of Boris Johnson's health and social care visa, which saw 710,000 people arrive here.
Yeah, well, I think you've been sold a big, fat lie about our country desperately needing migrants for the NHS, and I'm going to expose it once and for all. Also,
this inquiry is dead in the water. Nearly 5 months have gone by, and what has happened? Nothing.
Now, the rape gangs are so vast and so terrible, only the death penalty would grant victims justice and national peace. That's the view of a journalist joining me shortly. And also, whiny, privileged MPs who live as little as 29 minutes commute from Parliament. Guess what? Demanding they get a second home at your expense. I'm going to expose all of them tonight.
And I can sum up the threat for you in 2 words. Elon Musk.
Yeah, well, Elon Musk thinks we should abolish the super-state bureaucracy that is the European Union. My guests will be going head-to-head on that. Also,
finish here with the terrorist trend that concerns me most. The worsening threat from Al-Qaeda, and in particular from Islamic State.
The Home Office admits 170 terrorists cannot be deported from Britain due to human rights laws. Whatever next? And joining me this evening to go through all these big stories, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, former Labour advisor Paul Richards, and assistant US opinion editor at The Telegraph, Poppy Coburn. And British driver Lando Norris has won his first Formula One world title at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Congratulations, Lando, if you're watching. A huge 2 hours coming up, but first, let's get your news with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Alex. Good evening to you. 2 minutes past 9 here in the GB Newsroom. A 31-year-old man's been arrested after pepper spray was used in an attempted robbery at a Heathrow Airport car park. Armed officers were called to Terminal 3 at around 8 o'clock this morning following reports that multiple people had been assaulted. Police say a woman was robbed of her suitcase by 4 men who sprayed the substance in her direction, with those directly involved in the incident known to each other. 21 people, including a 3-year-old girl, were treated at the scene. 5 were taken to hospital. Well, passengers faced delays and difficulties accessing the airport, and there was disruption to train and tube services. The Prime Minister says his former deputy, Angela Rayner, will return to the Cabinet. Ms Rayner resigned in September after she was found to have underpaid stamp duty on a flat in Hove. Sir Keir Starmer says the former housing minister is hugely talented and remains a major voice in the Labour movement, indicating that misogyny had played a part in the level of criticism she faced. The Kremlin says radical changes are needed for Donald Trump's peace plan for Ukraine, despite the US suggesting a deal is close. US envoy Keith Kellogg says Ukraine's nuclear power plant and the future of the Donbass are 2 outstanding issues, although Europe and Ukraine have ruled out territorial concessions to Russia. Sir Keir Starmer is set to host Volodymyr Zelensky and the leaders of France and Germany at Downing Street tomorrow. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's eldest son has urged Europe to come up with a better plan. He was asked at a Middle East conference if the US president is preparing to walk away from the peace process.
I think he may. What's good about my father and what's unique about my father is you don't know what he's going to do. The fact that he's not predictable, he's not following the playbook of every clown who's, again, been a bureaucrat for decades, you don't know. And so that forces everyone to actually deal in an intellectually honest capacity, which has not happened in far too long.
British driver Lando Norris has become Formula One world champion for the first time after the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix earlier. Norris finished 3rd to come 2 points ahead of Max Verstappen in the standings. Norris began the day with a 12-point lead, knowing that he just needed to finish on the podium to clinch the Drivers' Championship for McLaren. He did just that with his teammate Oscar Piastri 2nd. Norris becomes the 11th British driver to win the title. And beachgoers in West Sussex have been warned to stay away from washed-up bananas or face potential prosecution. Tons of fruit began to wash up at Selsey Beach this morning after 16 containers fell off a cargo ship in choppy waters near the Isle of Wight. Locals descended on the scene to bag up the bananas, but Coast Guards have said those who fail to declare items within 28 days are breaking the law. They could face fines of up to $2,500 for failing to declare a wreck without a reasonable excuse. Or just have a serious case of upset stomach. That's it for the moment. I'll be back with more later.
Well, that story was totally bananas, and something else is too, because Angela Rayner is coming back, isn't she? That's essentially what our Prime Minister declared in his puff piece in The Observer today. She's only been gone for 3 months, by the way, if you seem to have forgotten. It does feel like a lot longer, but it's only been 3 months. It seems to me the disgraced former Deputy Prime Minister has got Keir Starmer over a barrel. He called her, in this puff piece, hugely talented. I'm sorry, what is she talented at? She's never had a job in her life. She's climbed the greasy pole of politics, called for everyone on their dog to resign, and as housing minister, she pledged to build millions of new homes, yet the stats show only 186,000 net additional homes were delivered during her time in office, a decrease on the year before she was in office. So she's not very talented at that, is she? Well, she's not, clearly, even very good at tax avoidance loopholes. She got caught out on that one too. So what has she been successful at? Well, she's definitely been successful at stirring up class warfare, calling Tories scum, if you remember. And I suppose she's also been good at acting as Labour's human hand grenade, rolling around the back benches, blowing up her own party's unity at every single turn. But look, the reality is that bringing Rayner back after 3 very short months just exposes the sheer hypocrisy of this beleaguered government. What would Angela Rayner have said if Boris Johnson tried this stunt? Well, this is what Angela Rayner said in October 2020.
Just to clarify, you do think Matt Hancock should resign?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he should hang his head in shame, but I don't think he's the only problem. I think the whole of the front bench are a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what you should be doing now, Angela, hanging your head in shame. Well, look, let's be real. If Boris had slunk back into the cabinet 3 months after being sacked, or if any Tory she'd branded a liar or corrupt politician made a comeback, Rayner would have been the first one on the phone to the BBC faster than you can say double standards. She'd be demanding investigations, inquiries, wouldn't she? But for her, it's all forgiven, forgotten and fast-tracked. That's because it's what, Angela?
There's one rule for them and one rule for all of us.
Isn't it true? Let's be honest, this isn't about Rayner's supposed and inexplicable talent. It's about saving the Prime Minister's own backside. The most unpopular Prime Minister in history now has Rayner reportedly briefing against him behind closed doors at every turn. Before the budget, if you remember, snippets of Rayner's own socialist alternative budget magically leaked to the press to undermine the Chancellor Rachel Reeves. She's allegedly now plotting to rebel against David Lammy, the now Deputy Prime Minister's jury reforms, alongside 60 other Labour backbenchers. And Starmer's own Health Secretary, his former best mate, Wes Streeting, has reportedly floated the idea of a joint ticket with Rayner to oust the Prime Minister. So, the question now isn't if Rayner eventually topples the Prime Minister, it's what position she'll be in when she does do it. And don't forget, this is the same Labour Party that told you this.
We've changed the Labour Party, returned it to service, and that is how we will govern. Country first, party second.
That didn't last long, did it, Keir? Right, well, let's get the thoughts of my panel. Businessman and activist Adam Brooks, former Labour Party advisor Paul Richards, and associate comment editor at The Telegraph, Poppy Coburn. Right, Adam, I'll start with you. First of all, I want to know, why does the Prime Minister think she's hugely talented? Because I don't know what talent she's got, frankly.
I've got to ask, what does she know about Keir Starmer? What dirty secrets does she hold on that man? Because, as you say, you know, she hasn't got a great track record within politics, and sometimes people like me are attacked for saying that because she's a woman. Well, I don't care if you're a woman or a man, black, white or brown. If you're bad at your job, I'm going to call you out.
Absolutely.
Let's remember, there's not just one property scandal, there's been 2 in the last 2 years. There was a capital gains tax and there's been a stamp duty scandal as well, both of which apparently she underpaid or didn't pay. So I'm also being led to believe she hasn't repaid the current one as well.
Not yet, as far as we understand.
So if that was us, we would be getting those demands from HMRC. And as she said, it's one rule for them and one rule for us.
Yeah, that seems to be the line.
That is the optics that, say, me as a voter are seeing, is that they can do whatever they want, but we cannot. And they're treated different when they're caught out. Suddenly it's an oversight or a mistake. If we do it, it's fraud, you know, or it's serious. So there's a lot of people that are losing a lot of trust in these politicians.
Supposedly, the former Deputy Prime Minister, should I say, is waiting for HMRC to issue her with that bill. So we'll see as and when that happens. Okay. I'll go straight to you, Paul, for a bit of Labour defence here. Angela Rayner is causing real trouble for the Prime Minister, isn't she?
Well, to say she got away with it, I mean, she'll have to pay the money back, but she did lose her job as Deputy Prime Minister of the country.
I didn't say she got away with it.
Adam,
oh, right, beg your
so
pardon,
I'm just picking up that point. She has paid a price for what
she's coming back, though, what, for a few months?
And then the question is she coming back? I don't think she is anytime soon. I think she does speak to a constituency in the country. People found her a breath of fresh air. She left school at 16, didn't go to Eton, didn't go to Oxbridge, you know, like most Deputy Prime Ministers have done. So I think, you know, she does speak to a certain group of people who don't want to see men in suits. But I think it's too soon, frankly, for her to come back into government. She can't come back as Deputy Prime Minister. She can't come back as Deputy Leader.
Well, she could, because it sounds to me she might be taking out the current Deputy Prime Minister if she had it her way. She's got 60 Rebel MPs working with her for our plot to topple it.
Well, I think it was Claire Matley, when he was getting a bit of trouble in the 40s, he wrote one of his opponents a little letter, and it said something along the lines of, a period of silence on your part would be most welcome.
Indeed.
And I think that should be true for her too.
Just before we go to because I'm really excited to hear what you think, Poppy, about this. What is her huge talent? What is the massive talent she's got?
Well, she left school at 16 and then she became Deputy Prime Minister, which is more than any of us on his panel of managers.
Yes, I mean, yes. She's been a cabinet
since
I was born.
She's been a cabinet minister.
And what good has she done?
I think she's been good at a cabinet minister. I mean, she wasn't sacked because she was a bad cabinet minister.
Standards are pretty... Well, yeah, she was the housing minister. She shouldn't even know her own tax rules.
She left school at 16 and then she became a cabinet minister. That's quite impressive, I think.
Well, that doesn't make you talented. You can achieve things in life and not be very good at things. I mean,
shows you how bad Labour is.
I don't think the Prime Minister's very good at his job. I don't think he's talented for getting there. He just happens to be in the right place at the right time with the Tory
anyone could have done it.
Well, yeah, that's what I think.
Well, look, I think I've met enough politicians to realise that most of them, I wouldn't use the word talented to describe them.
Yeah, exactly.
Convenient, you know. I think you used the phrase climbing the greasy pole, and perhaps that is true in this context as well. I mean, the reality is with Angela Rayner, I understand the arguments that people make about her is that she's more of a human being, which isn't hard when Keir Starmer is being held up as the alternative, right? I mean, the man has never said anything human in his entire life. But the real problem here is it doesn't actually make a difference if she comes back. If Keir Starmer seriously thinks that bringing back Angela Rayner is going to turn around the fate of the Labour Party, he's utterly delusional. The Labour Party was incredibly unpopular when Angela Rayner was on its way out, and it will be incredibly unpopular when she inevitably comes back into cabinet.
Can I ask you, do you think that by bringing her back, he's going to stave her off? I mean, I'm not even talking about the other parties he's trying to stave off. I'm talking about her because I mean, I don't know about you, Poppy, but when I put together the jigsaw of the press over the last 6 months, it seems to me she's been scratching at number 10 for a very long time. Well, do you think she's going for that job?
I mean, who isn't at this point? I mean, Wes Streeting, I think, came out of the womb being ready to become Labour Party Prime Minister, you know. You've got Shabana Mahmood, who's obviously been going for it as well, and Angela Rayner has made no secret within the party that she thinks she could do the top job. The problem is, again, why would you want to? It's the party that's so unpopular. It's not the person in charge at the top. It doesn't matter if you shuffle them around.
The point about that,
the same way.
The point about the greasy pole is the higher up you get, the better the view. And you can see, Tony Blair used to say, there's nothing ignoble about wanting to be Prime Minister if you're at that level already. And you've made certain sacrifices, you know, you've made your life choices. So there's nothing wrong with wanting to be Prime Minister.
No, I don't think there is, by the way. I don't think
she should be, by the way, but I'm just saying there's nothing wrong. There's nothing.
Well, you might have to eat your words on that one, Paul, because it looks like she probably will be. Do you think she's Prime Minister in waiting at this point?
No, a little personal story.
Go on.
I've been to dinner with Angela Rayner.
Oh, have you
not
really?
just us, with other people.
Right, clarify that one.
And yeah, to my wife out there. And she promised us, this was about 3 years ago, she promised us that Labour would be the party for hospitality.
Right.
Would have turned out to be the complete opposite. Labour are destroying hospitality. They're destroying the British pub. You know, we don't know where we're going, apart, you know, record bankruptcies, record insolvencies within the sector. Labour are destroying hospitality. Yeah. She sat across the table, looked me in the eye and said, we are different. We are going to support hospitality. They obviously lied, and that is why I'm not a great fan of Angela Rayner.
Yeah, I mean, does she really speak for the working people, Paul? Because, you know, when I look at, you know, a lot of what happened in this current Labour government, you know, they promised not to raise taxes. Taxes have gone up. She did vote for the budget, of course, as well. She hasn't rebelled against that. So do you really think she speaks for working people or a certain type of person when we talk about
Well, I think it's always dangerous if any politician claims to speak for the people or the working class because it's so variegated and different. You know, people have different views, people come from different backgrounds. But she does speak to a sense of aspiration that even if you do leave school without any qualifications, you can still get on. You know,
what do you think she would tell young people about how she got to where she is today? What would she
join a trade union. So it was her trade union that gave her opportunities, training and all the rest of it. You know, she was working in the care sector and the union gave her a leg up, as it has done for many, you know, hundreds of years. That's what trade unions have done for people.
Poppy fans joining you?
Of course. I mean, I think the reality is, if you're talking on behalf of the working people, Labour has this kind of sentimentality about a certain subsection of voters, like Red Wall voters was one term, years and years and years, they really desperately want to get these people back. They're not coming back. Who the Labour Party actually represents at the moment are people who work in the public sector, maybe people who have actually moved up through the unions as well, although even those people, I mean, Unite and Unison have both been somewhat hostile towards Labour in recent months.
Well, whatever that's...
So it's public sector workers and downwardly mobile university graduates. That's not enough to actually run a country on. Those people, those groups are big, but they're not big enough to actually have a winnable majority on, and they are not going to win back over working people for precisely the reasons you mentioned, Adam, because their budget is based on scrabbling around for short-termist, we need cash, and not actually being able to raise the living standards of people who are trying to get on and are trying to be socially mobile, like Angela Rayner.
But that's why
not everyone can join a union now.
That's the point about, you're not speaking of one class or the other. I think the class war is over.
Although, of course, she tried to galvanise the class war. She spoke in terms of class war herself.
Maybe that's her background, but I think people have to appeal across the class divide.
I mean, the North London love Labour, you know what I mean? They're not for the working class. I don't meet anyone out and about who supports Labour, and they certainly wouldn't vote Conservative either. So for me...
Well, doesn't that say more about you, Adam, and who you mix with?
Not really.
Because I mean, people from all kinds of different backgrounds.
I speak to hundreds of people per week in my pub, from doctors down to builders. And not one...
And you've never met a Labour voter?
No, no one wants to say to me they're voting Labour. I think they're ashamed.
Well, no, but this is what it's like now. And unfortunately, Paul, I think you're going to have to come to the reality that it is the most unpopular government in history, unfortunately. So that you're going to be hard found to find a Labour voter on the streets right
14% in one poll, Labour.
That's still quite a few million
Patrick
people.
Christie was in the heartlands, the home of Labour the other week, and it was tough for him to find someone backing your party.
Well, you met me. I'm voting Labour, so you met me. You met once. There you go. There's one of us.
That's true. Very briefly, Poppy, do you think this is Kemi Badenoch's dream, though, had to have Angela Rayner stood in front of her at PMQs?
I only think the problem with Kemi Badenoch, right, is that she's doing a really good job in PMQs, but who's actually watching PMQs?
Well, that's true.
I mean, again, this is the reality, right?
That's very true.
These are two parties that are kind of stuck in an old paradigm that aren't really cutting through to the border country. For Labour, it's the Greens that are nipping at their heels, and obviously for the Tories, it's Reform.
The Uniparty is dead. I think it could be Greens v Reform.
I'd put money on that.
Would you?
Yeah.
Would you?
Obviously, I'm a journalist, so I'm not...
Paul's upset. No, you're upset, Paul.
Well, the Greens are my trigger word. I mean, leaving NATO, abolishing...
Oh, listen, they're far left nut
monarchy.
jobs. They're far left nut jobs.
Legalising drugs, which I saw you commenting on this week.
Get off your pedestal, Paul. You can talk about the Greens another time. You've got your party to worry about.
Well, we don't even need to talk about them anymore, do we? They're finished.
Well, there we go. Started before it's all over, Right, time now for the Great British Giveaway, and it's your chance to win our biggest cash prize of the year, an incredible 85 grand. Here's all the details you need for a chance to make it yours.
This is your chance to become our biggest cash prize winner to date, with an incredible £85,000 to be won. That's right, £85,000 in totally tax-free cash could be making its way from our bank account to yours. It would be like having over £7,000 per month extra to play with, each month for a whole year. That could be you, with your feet up, safe in the knowledge that 2026 is on us. £85,000 is a massive amount of money, and it could be yours. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 9th of February 2026. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, coming up, radio silence is what we've witnessed from the government since the launch of the inquiry into group-based child sexual exploitation and abuse fell into chaos. But first...
And I can sum up the threat for you in 2 words. Elon Musk.
Well, Elon Musk wants to demolish the EU. Do you agree? We're going to have a big debate on that next. This is Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News.
From the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Alex Armstrong Tonight. Well, Elon Musk has called for the European Union entirely to be abolished after they fined his social media platform, formerly, of course, Twitter, now X, 120 million euros. Now, in a series of posts, Elon Musk lashed out at the officials who handed out the punishment. And he said this: the EU should be abolished and sovereignty returned to individual countries so that governments can better represent their people. Musk went further, taking the attack personally. The EU imposed this crazy fine not just on X, but also on me personally, which is even more insane. Therefore, it would seem appropriate to apply our response not just to the EU, but also to the individuals who took this action against me. Well, Donald Trump has also threatened to impose additional tariffs on the bloc if it proceeds with penalising some of the US tech giants, whilst his officials have pushed Brussels to scrap the DSA entirely. So, should we just accept these Orwellian measures or move towards abolishing the EU? Well, I'm now joined by superstar guests here, former Secretary of State for Business and Trade, Vince Cable, and former MEP, David Campbell-Bannerman. Good evening, gentlemen. Former Secretary of State, Vince Cable, I'll start with you. Elon Musk has been ravaging the EU, and it's not the first time. He has been quite critical of them before. We've left the European Union now. We've reclaimed that sovereignty that Elon Musk spoke about. Do you think Europe would be better off without the big bureaucracy above it?
No, I actually applaud what the European Commission has done. I mean, Musk is arrogant, bullying, and it's absolutely right that the tech companies should be properly regulated. I think the problem here was the issue about transparency around the algorithms of his program. The European Commission has shown it's willing to stand up to Trump, rightly so, and it's in marked contrast to the very craven behaviour of our own Labour government, which signed this agreement, the tariff agreement with the United States, which effectively put us in a position of being a vassal state. I mean, we have to get the approval of the American government before we tax or regulate their tech companies. An appalling position. And fortunately, the European Union is behaving with a little bit more backbone.
I'll pass this over to you, David, because when we look at growth in the EU, it is stagnant at the moment, so to speak. Innovation has dried up. Many people sort of joke about the EU. Now they say the only innovation the EU's come up with is the plastic bottle cap attached to the plastic bottle. That's the criticism of many in America, and they point to less regulation in the United States as a good example of that. What do you think? Should we abolish it?
Well, just on that fact, the economic facts are really stark that, about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, the EU and the US were on about equal basis economically. Now the EU's way behind per head. The United States is nearly twice as much in terms of income per head than the EU. And that does come down to over-regulation. This is not yet another absurd example, and it's a nasty example, a massive fine. And who are these people anyway? Von der Leyen, no one's voted for her apart from a few hundred MEPs. I mean, not like President Trump with millions, tens of millions voting for him. It's a joke.
Yeah, well, Vince Cable, I'll pass this over to you again. It's a fair criticism. There is many people, there was someone on Twitter saying that the EU is a bastion of democracy. But when you point out the Parliament president isn't voted for by any European citizens, nor is the president of the European Commission, you start to see, well, actually, it's not quite this democratic institution it should be. Do you think the EU needs some reform to make it more democratic?
Well, I think it certainly should be reformed. I think a lot of the bureaucracy greatly needs to be simplified. It's certainly true that the European Union has lost quite a lot of its dynamism around innovation. I agree with all that. But of course, we need to accept that there are some European countries, I mean, Spain is one, Poland another, that are growing a good deal faster than the UK. So we're not in a position to lecture the rest of Europe. But the European Union remains a very important institution. The single market, which Britain largely created, is absolutely key. It would be absolutely absurd, having seen the damage that Brexit's done to the UK economy, that other European countries would follow suit. So, of course, it must stay together and it must function strongly, while at the same time reforming. I accept the need for liberalisation of regulation. Of course, that's got to happen.
Vince, you've hit me with a trigger word there about Brexit damaging the economy. I'm sure David Bannerman can attest to what I'm going to say, so I'll pass it straight to him. Go on.
I'm sorry, the Lib Dems have been appalling about this, wanting to rejoin the customs union, which a certain Sir Henry Campbell Bannerman was very much against, by the way, in 1980 when he led the Liberals. The Brussels Sugar Convention. They've been trying to do this a long time, this customs union and total control from the centre. No, look, Rachel Reeves would have had another black hole if we'd been in the EU. We'd had another 25 billion black hole had we been in the EU. We've saved that in fees. And we've done all these wonderful trade deals, which are better. The OBR has just come out to say that the benefits of these trade deals are actually greater than what Starmer's trying to do, getting closer to the EU. So the whole thing is a nonsense. Let's just be a sovereign, independent country, a proud one. And we've got a great deal with the EU. Don't mess it up. Let's just move on.
Oh, Vince Cable, David Campbell Bannerman, thank you both very much, gentlemen, for a very hearty debate. I appreciate your thoughts on Elon Musk wanting to abolish the EU. Personally, I quite like a little bit of sovereignty. I don't think that's the most important thing you can have as a country. More so than anything else, at least we can control our own destiny. That's my argument. Anyway, coming up, are we seeing the first sign of another expense scandal as outer London MPs call for the right to claim a whopping 30 grand a year in second home costs? But next.
This inquiry is dead in the water. Nearly 5 months have gone by, and what has happened? Nothing.
Well, it's been 6 weeks since the Grooming gang inquiry launched 6 weeks of utter chaos, that is, cover-ups and unanswered questions. So are we ever going to see the full forensic inquiry that we were promised? We'll be getting right into this big story next.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. It's still pretty unsettled in the eastern Mediterranean over the next few days. There will be some heavy showers and thunderstorms around too. But across Iberia and actually most of the Canary Islands and Madeira, it's largely fine and there'll be plenty of sunshine on Monday. Just a few showers for northwestern parts of Spain and Portugal. Sunny for most of Italy too, but we run into more in the way of showers and stronger winds pushing down across parts of Greece and into Turkey. But overall, over the next few days, there's lots of sunshine to be enjoyed and it will feel fairly warm.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, a very good evening to you. Hope you've managed to have a lovely weekend, although I'm sure many of us probably retreated to indoor activities at some points today. We've been seeing rain sweeping its way across the UK. It is continuing its journey north-eastwards, heading towards the Northern Isles, so quite a wet evening to come here, but there will be some clearer spells arriving behind that. Another band of showers, though, sweeping their way in from the west. These could be quite heavy with some hail and thunder in the mixture. Underneath all of that, though, it will be a fairly mild night, some of us even holding up in double-digit figures. But for parts of northeastern Scotland, where we have some clearer skies overnight, we may just drop down towards low single figures, maybe just about freezing in some very sheltered rural valleys. We could still see a few rubbles of thunder on that system as it continues through across Monday morning, so do be aware when you are travelling to work. But there will be some brighter, drier intervals moving in behind that as well. Potentially, though, a few outbreaks of rain still lingering for some areas of England and Wales, and generally the cloud will tend to build from the south as we move throughout the day. Any of that sunshine turning hazier and generally those skies much greyer as we head towards the end of the day. We do hold on to a fairly notable breeze across many areas as well, but temperatures still a touch above average for the time of year. They'll be ranging between 8 and 9 degrees Celsius in the north, 13 and 14 further south. Overnight, though, into Tuesday, our attention will increasingly turn to an area of low pressure that is going to move in from the southwest. This has the potential to bring much more disruption with its quite heavy pulses of rain swinging their way through and some very strong winds, and there are wind and rain warnings issued for parts of Wales, southwest England, as well as northwestern England throughout the day on Tuesday. Another wind warning comes into force across the northwest of Scotland for the second half of Tuesday and into Wednesday. There could well be gales, severe gales around at times. Flooding disruption is possible at times, so do stay up to date with the forecast on that.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, it's now been 6 weeks since the inquiry into group-based child sexual exploitation and abuse fell into complete chaos. In that time, survivors have walked out, accusing civil servants of trying to water down the process, and the man tipped to lead it has sensationally quit. Well, since then, it's been radio silence. No new chair, no terms of reference, no clarity. When you scratch beneath the surface, a disturbing pattern is emerging, a potential systemic cover-up spanning decades. A failure to confront what many say were racially targeted attacks carried out by organised gangs of predominantly Muslim men, often from the same extended families. Right now, more than ever, Britain needs a full forensic national inquiry we were promised. No more delays, denials or cover-ups. And I'm pleased to say I'm now joined by former prisoner and justice journalist David Shipley. David, thank you very much for joining me. You've had a great piece you've written for, was it The Spectator? I believe it was. Am I correct? That's right. Thanks, David. Listen, you've made some quite big remarks in that piece. You said that actually the death penalty is what is necessary for perpetrators. Correct me if I'm wrong on this matter, but regardless, you think there should be very stone-cold justice. Do you think we're going to see this grooming gang inquiry come to light?
I am worried we're not going to see it under this government. We've learned actually today that, so when Louise Casey did her rapid review back in the summer, which led to the inquiry being said that we were being told that we would get an inquiry, she said the government has to make sure local authorities and police don't destroy any records. They have to order them not to touch any records. And that hasn't happened, which is very disturbing. And I'm sure the government would like it to go away. The thing about this particular set of crimes and how long they went on for and the way they were covered up by public servants because of fears about disturbing community relations and causing ethnic discord, all of that really makes this a huge threat to the whole settlement in this country over the last few decades, the whole way we've been governed. So it really does threaten the establishment. I'm sure they would like it to go away, and we can't allow that to happen.
Biggest threat here, the fact that, I mean, you please can't tell me if you think I'm wrong, but is there possibly a bigger threat here that it's a Labour government that's in charge here, and there's a lot of criticism pointed at Labour, who are in charge of many of the councils where this injustice, this massive injustice, this rape of women and children and worse has taken place? Is that part of the concern here?
I think that's part of the concern, although let's be honest as well, the Tories had 14 years to do something about it and didn't launch a full inquiry into it. So I think we need a new government that's willing to disrupt the existing settlement of the main parties and actually will bring us a real inquiry. I'm not convinced the Tories would be doing it now either.
And David, what would you like to see happen to the perpetrators? Of course, this is hoping for a best-case scenario here, that, of course, this does go ahead and we do get this full national inquiry. Let's say it does uncover corruption in the political system, in the civil service, and, of course, perpetrators themselves. What should be the outcome for them?
Sure. Well, I think what we need to have is a full inquisitorial and judicial inquiry, which would seek to identify every single man who was a participant in these rape gangs. And also, we know that there are public servants who cover these acts up. That's been found in court transcripts, in previous reports, in the case reviews. This isn't new, but we need to find every public servant who has been involved in covering up these offences, or in some cases even being complicit in them. And I think everyone who works for the state who's been complicit or covered it up needs to be prosecuted. They need to lose their pensions, any honours, any assets they might have to go to the victims. And as for the actual men who took part in these rape gangs, I think whether or not they've previously been prosecuted or sentenced, they need to be re-prosecuted. And yes, I think the only appropriate punishment for this sort of offence, these crimes against humanity, is the death penalty.
Yeah, I think many people will share that sentiment, David. Journalist David Shipley, thank you very much for joining me to talk about this very important issue to the whole country, actually. The whole country is outraged at this, isn't it? Let's bring in my panel. Adam, I'll come straight to you. What do you think should happen if there is at least some findings of corruption in our political system and our civil service? What should we do to those people?
Put them in jail. The grooming gang and rape gang scandal is probably one of the biggest scandals of our modern lifetime. Pakistani rape gangs targeted white girls, working class white girls, simply because they were white and working class. This is racism. It was covered up by many people as well within the Labour Party over the years. Labour are up to their neck in this, and everything needs to come out. And if any politicians have got anything going back, they need to step back, and the ones that have been complicit need to be put in prison.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I mean, there's a lot of strong feelings about this. You guys at home are feeling very strong about this too, seeing your say here. Paul, Hillsborough, how many years did that take? Decades? 36-something, 30 or so years? If this carries on at that rate, we won't be seeing anyone have justice, will we?
Well, these national inquiries do take years and years, which is why I think you need to get on with the job now of making prosecutions and banging people up if they are found guilty. I think it's a mistake to conflate it into party politics. I don't think that's what it's about. I do agree with Adam that it's about class as well as race. And I think because these girls were young, vulnerable, white and working class, the kind of establishment didn't believe them, you know, called them names, wrote them off. It was a Labour MP, don't forget, Anne Cryer, who called this out as having an ethnic dimension and started to point out that this was Pakistani groups,
that's true,
including the families doing it. So that, you know, that was more than 10 years ago. But the most important thing is justice for the girls and the criminals that did it to be banged up.
It's not just about the criminals there, of course, and I think the reason why people get party political is because it was Labour-run councils that were implicated in this. So it's unfortunately, this is not just a story about victims and perpetrators, it's also about the people who covered it up over decades and decades and decades. It's about people who the victims who actually went to try and get help from the authorities, and that when the authorities raised the alarm, they were sent on anti-racism training courses. This is an institutional problem, and it has to be treated as a society-wide issue. And I think it's not just as simple as, you know, referring to the fact that the perpetrators have had jail sentences. Maybe they need more. I think the sentences they got were grossly uncommensurate to the crimes that they actually committed. But it's the people who were involved with the cover-up. We need to know who they are, and they need to get jail time.
Do you think there should be death penalty?
I'm personally in favour of the death penalty, yeah. I'm in favour of the death penalty when it relates to crimes against child sex abuses and...
Agreed. I'm the same.
Yeah, there's many people who share that sentiment. I think the author of the article we were talking about with David there, himself, was in favour of death penalty in some of those specific cases there. This needs to get sorted. I don't know what on earth is taking so long. This needs to start now. We can't all be in our 80s when this gets resolved, because people will not be held accountable, will they? Well, look, a Home Office spokesperson said this. They said that the government was committed to an inquiry on grooming gangs and that they accepted Casey's recommendations in full, including a National Crime Agency investigation into 1,200 historic cases. I suspect it's much higher than that. Coming up next, should taxpayers be forking out the bill for MPs' second homes in London? These MPs are so whiny, you're never going to believe where some of them live. Honestly, this is Alex Armstrong Tonight. That's next.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
All right, get this. It's going to make your blood boil. MPs who represent constituencies just 35 minutes from the House of Commons, Parliament, of course, could be allowed to claim more than 30 grand a year of taxpayers' money to rent a London crash pad after moaning about their commute. It's the gall of these people. MPs without a London constituency say they are facing difficulty getting home due to unsociable hours in Westminster combined with lengthy off-peak journeys involving multiple tube lines, rail connections and walks to and from the stations. Oh my goodness, it sounds horrendous. Welcome to the real world, everybody. After a backlash, of course, in 2009, MPs living close to Parliament couldn't claim expenses but receive a yearly London living payment of just a measly £6,500. Wow. Well, joining me now down the line is former leader of UKIP, Neil Hamilton. Neil, a pleasure to have you on the show this evening. You know, I just can't believe the gall of these people. Help me understand here, Neil. Do you think there's any case whatsoever for MPs to be able to claim up to 30 grand for a second home or expenses or rents for them when they live so close to London?
Well, I do think there's a case if you have to be in London late at night and then again very early in the morning for having the facility of overnight accommodation. That's not to say that you should have a flat for $30,000 a year, but you should at least, I think, be able to claim a modest hotel in order to stay the night. At the minute, there's only about 23 constituencies that have been identified as potentially qualifying for any change in the rules. At the minute, if you're an MP outside London, you can claim these benefits that you mentioned a moment ago. If you're within London, then you can only claim the London living allowance because London is a more expensive place to live in than other parts of the country. So I think that's perfectly reasonable at all. You know, London allowance, many people in the private sector enjoy as well. I don't see that MPs should be any different. At the minute, what we've got is the Parliamentary Standards Authority has a consultation in the most general terms as to do you think there's any case at all for MPs moving from the current system of a flat rate of 6,000 quid to having the ability to claim, as occasion demands, to have overnight accommodation in London. And so I think as a general principle, you know, that is supportable.
Yeah, Neil, I'll tell you what it is for me, right? I think I commute longer than some of these MPs into my job. I have unsociable hours. I'll be finishing the show at midnight tonight. I don't whine. I get on with it because I know there's people who are doing far worse than me who are having to work far longer hours. And I feel that a lot of these people who don't tend to have much business experience, I'm not saying specifically these MPs that have been highlighted in this article have been, but they don't have a lot of experience and they don't know how grateful they should be for the salary they're on. It's not a bad salary and I know they work hard, but for the average Brit, this is going to feel very out of touch. They're on 90 grand a year. Yes, life is hard. You do have to commute sometimes, but it will look like an extra freebie, so to speak, at the behest of the taxpayer when we're all being asked to pay more.
Yeah, I can see that point, obviously. And there's no popularity that you're going to get from supporting more expenses for members of Parliament. I know that very well, having been years ago an MP, when things were very different, when we did have all-night sittings on a much more regular basis than happens now. But nevertheless, I think we should recognise that being a member of Parliament isn't like an ordinary job, a 9-to-5 job or anything. The hours are not regular. The security tenure isn't there. I mean, 2/3, I think, at least, of the current membership of the House of Commons will be looking for a job in 3 years' time. I very much hope so, anyway. So it isn't a career as such. For more than a very few people. So there are all sorts of insecurities in there, as well as all sorts of complications in the life of a member of Parliament, because you do have two bases. You have a constituency to represent with lots of things to do in your constituency, and then you have to be in London on a regular basis as well. So I think in those circumstances, it calls for a certain amount of special pleading, if you like, to accommodate the special needs of the job.
Right. Well, fair enough. Fair points made there. Neil Hamilton, former leader of UKIP. Thank you for joining me. Very briefly here with my panel again. Poppy, I'll just throw to you. Do you think this will look exceptionally bad if MPs are calling for this right now? That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most appalling things was that they were complaining about a 25-minute commute.
Yeah.
Anyone who has actually had to live in London, particularly when they're younger, you're commuting for over an hour and you're living in a slum.
Yeah.
But people wouldn't mind so much if MPs were paid more money if they were making us richer.
Yes.
But they're making us poorer. So
Yes.
sorry, you're going to have to suffer the consequences too.
Paul?
Well, my first job in Parliament in '91 was in a Parliament that had Thatcher in it and David Owen, all these guys, and they all lived in London, and they used to pop occasionally to their constituencies 3 or 4 times a year. Now we expect MPs to live in the constituency and work in London, so we have to have a system that allows that to happen. Now, I don't favour yet more expenses. Like Poppy, I would just say, look, you're a grown-up with a professional job, we'll put the salary up, and then you decide how you want to spend it.
What do you think, Adam?
They chose to do this job. At the end of the day, these people are so removed from reality, it's scary. They're charlatans. At the end of the day, look, it's took me an hour and 20 minutes to get here tonight. I won't get home till 12:30. Stop moaning about 30-minute journeys and get in the real world.
Yeah.
I mean, look, this country has no money. We're broke.
Yep.
And suddenly they want us to pay the highest taxes in history. For them, no chance.
No, this is exactly how I feel. I haven't been on your side yet, but I can only imagine what you're all thinking at home, because I understand what Neil was trying to say, and I do get that we want to attract the best of the best, but there are people who work late, they finish late, and they get paid far less than MPs do, and they are expected still to commute home in some way or another, and they are expected to still pay for their own accommodation and find a way to make it work. There's people who commute into London from Oxford, for example. I bet that costs them a bomb, and they don't get expenses to pay for it. Poppy, is there an argument on security to be made here briefly?
No, not really. Again, I just feel like, again, if it was coming from a different group of people, maybe we would have a little bit more time, we'd believe them more. But I think, unfortunately, because our current class of MPs are so self-serving, and also, by the way, they've proved completely capable on their own back of failing security procedures, like taking home classified documents and leaving it on a bus. Or I shouldn't have to pay for a cab to keep leaving your things on a bus.
Well, that's
you
true.
shouldn't bring them home. That's the answer.
Paying for incompetence. Yeah, that seems to be the feeling across the country, doesn't it? Well, coming up, pressure is mounting on the Home Office as it's revealed scores of high-risk foreign offenders remain in the UK. We can't boot them out, but next.
It included widespread abuse of Boris Johnson's health and social care visa, which saw 710,000 people arrive here.
Why haven't we spent more money training British nurses? I think you've been sold a big fat lie about us desperately needing to flood the country of millions of people to prop up the NHS. I'm going to expose it next. Come and join me.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, a very good evening to you. Hope you've managed to have a lovely weekend, although I'm sure many of us probably retreated to indoor activities at some points today. We've been seeing rain sweeping its way across the UK. It is continuing its journey north-eastwards, heading towards the Northern Isles, so quite a wet evening to come here, but there will be some clearer spells arriving behind that. Another band of showers, though, sweeping their way in from the west. These could be quite heavy with some hail and thunder in the mixture. Underneath all of that, though, it will be a fairly mild night, some of us even holding up in double-digit figures. But for parts of northeastern Scotland, where we have some clearer skies overnight, we may just drop down towards low single figures, maybe just about freezing in some very sheltered rural valleys. We could still see a few rumbles of thunder on that system as it continues through across Monday morning, so do be aware when you are travelling to work. But there will be some brighter, drier intervals moving in behind that as well. Potentially, though, a few outbreaks of rain still lingering for some areas of England and Wales, and generally the cloud will tend to build from the south as we move throughout the day. Any of that sunshine turning hazier, and generally those skies much greyer as we head towards the end of the day. We do hold on to a fairly notable breeze across many areas as well. The temperature's still a touch above average for the time of year. They'll be ranging between 8 and 9 degrees Celsius in the north, 13 and 14 further south. Overnight, though, into Tuesday, our attention will increasingly turn to an area of low pressure that is going to move in from the southwest. This has the potential to bring much more disruption with its quite heavy pulses of rain swinging their way through and some very strong winds, and there are wind and rain warnings issued for parts of Wales, southwest England, as well as northwestern England throughout the day on Tuesday. Another wind warning comes into force across the northwest of Scotland for the second half of Tuesday and into Wednesday. There could well be gales, severe gales around at times. Flooding disruption is possible at times, so do stay up to date with the forecast on that.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
We want to make the new year your best year yet, with a chance to win our greatest cash prize to date. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. Treat the family to that bucket list holiday you've always fancied. Get your dream car you've always wanted. Or just relax, safe in the knowledge that the coming year is on us. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 10 o'clock. I'm Alex Armstrong. Tonight.
It included widespread abuse of Boris Johnson's health and social care visa, which saw 710,000 people arrive here.
Well, I think you've been sold a big, fat lie about our country desperately needing migrants for the NHS, and I'm going to expose it once and for all. Also,
finish here with the terrorist trend that concerns me most. The worsening threat from Al-Qaeda, and in particular from Islamic State.
Well, the Home Office admits 170 terrorists can't be deported from Britain because, guess what? Human rights laws. Plus.
But I took and relied on
that advice was wrong.
And that advice was wrong.
Yes, Angela Rayner's coming back one way or another, isn't she? The Prime Minister, so weak and spineless, his disgraced former Deputy Prime Minister has clearly got him over a barrel.
This inquiry is dead in the water. Nearly 5 months have gone by, and what has happened? Nothing.
The rape gangs are so vast and so terrible, only the death penalty would grant victims justice and national peace. That's the view of a journalist who's joined me this evening. Also leading on the papers. The Independent are leading on this. Probation chief warns service is in perpetual crisis. And on the front page of the Metro, pepper spray attack chaos at Heathrow. We'll bring you the latest updates on that massive story today. And joining me to talk through all of this is businessman and activist Adam Brooks, former Labour Party advisor Paul Richards, and associate comment editor at The Telegraph, Poppy Coburn. And British driver Lando Norris has won his first Formula One title at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Well, a huge 2 hours. Congratulations, Lando, by the way. Massive achievement, mate. A huge 2 hours coming up. But first, let's get a look at your front page news with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Alex. Good evening to you. 2 minutes past 10 here in the GB Newsroom. A 3-year-old girl is amongst those who needed treatment after 4 men used pepper spray during an attempted robbery at Heathrow Airport. Officers responded to reports that multiple people had been assaulted by a group of men in the multi-storey car park at Terminal 3. A 31-year-old man remains in custody. Inquiries are ongoing to locate further suspects. 21 people were treated for injuries, with 5 taken to hospital. Well, passengers faced delays and difficulties accessing the airport, with disruption to train and tube services, including these people who are stuck in the Elizabeth line. Young unemployed people could have their benefits cut if they don't take up job offers as part of a new government scheme. Around 350,000 work and training places in construction, care and hospitality will be made available from April. It's backed by funding announced in the budget of up to £820 million. However, the Work and Pensions Secretary, Pat McFadden, says there will be sanctions for claimants who do not engage. Almost 1 million young people are currently not in employment, education or training, so-called NEETs, and Mr McFadden says they've been let down.
The last thing we want is young people living a life on benefits or not doing anything constructive. So we're coming forward with a package today which we call the Youth Guarantee. It's backed by £800 million of government investment, and that will offer training places to 300,000 or more of those young people. Young people have been neglected. They haven't been offered enough help in the past, and we want to put that right.
Russia's welcomed President Trump's new national security strategy, saying it's largely aligned with Moscow's vision. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov described it as an encouraging change of policy that he says he hopes will guarantee they can work together for a settlement in Ukraine. Well, the document released on Friday failed to identify Russia as a threat to the US, and it's highly critical of the EU, claiming Europe is at risk of civilizational erasure. It comes as talks to end the war enter a key phase, with the US suggesting a deal is close, although Moscow says radical changes to the plan are needed. European officials say language used in the strategy document closely resembles that of the Kremlin. Authorities in India are searching the site of a fire at a nightclub in Goa, where at least 25 people were killed overnight. Police initially blamed a gas explosion in the kitchen, although eyewitnesses have reported fireworks being set off during a show. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi says the victims and their families will be offered compensation. And British driver Lando Norris has won his first Formula One Drivers' Championship. He did it by finishing third at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix for McLaren to clinch the title by 2 points from Red Bull's Max Verstappen, who won the race. Norris's teammate Oscar Piastri came second on the night and third in the standings, McLaren securing their first drivers' and constructors' title double since 1998. And Norris becomes the 11th British Formula One World Champion. And those are the headlines. More coming up at 11 o'clock. Now it's back to Alex.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I think you've been told a big, fat lie, time and time again, about mass immigration being absolutely necessary for the survival of our National Health Service.
In the NHS, you're more likely to be treated by an immigrant working for the NHS than you are to be waiting behind an immigrant for treatment. And so despite the rhetoric that has been promoted by many politicians over the last few years, especially those that would champion Brexit, we should probably acknowledge that the NHS wasn't being crippled by immigration, as being sustained by it.
I'm going to tell you how wrong that is. And you'll be able to send this clip to any of your lefty friends who've been, I think, brainwashed and manipulated into buying this establishment lie. 26,000 of Britain's brightest sixth formers, straight A students, apply for medical school this year. And we slam the door on 18,000 of them. To put it more snarkily, that's 7 in 10 top grade British students, 69% of them rejected. Meanwhile, you won't be surprised to know that instead of investing in our own children's future and the future of our National Health Service, we're poaching 20,000 nurses and 10,000 doctors a year from countries like Nigeria and Pakistan. Estimates show roughly 1 in 6 Nigerian doctors are hoovered up by the NHS and around 1 in 12 from Pakistan. And what on earth do you think could be the motivation for all of this? Yes, of course, the simple answer is that they are far cheaper, aren't they?
Between 2021 and 2024, we saw over 2.6 million more people enter this country than leave it. And this included widespread abuse of Boris Johnson's health and social care visa, which saw 710,000 people arrive here.
I wonder why that was, Boris. Well, why don't we just spend more money training British nurses and doctors? Why don't you, the Labour Party, wipe out their student fees, for example, and uncap the amount of trainees we can, well, sustain in this country? 8,000 at the moment, that's all it is. Or why don't you just make the pay more attractive for them? That is a sacrifice most British people, I assume, would be willing to stomach to have our NHS supported by British doctors. Well, our government and the establishment politicians, as we all well know by now, are addicted to cheap foreign labour. So addicted, in fact, that a bit like someone who needs to quit a bad habit, every time you question its motivations for uncapped immigration, establishment politicians and their bureaucrat friends will always tell you that we desperately need migrants to prop up our NHS. So the next time one of them claims to you that we desperately need to flood the country with more and more cheap labour to sustain our National Health Service, and that you should be thankful for it, please take a moment to remind them that this is an utter lie and that we have more than enough talent here in Britain. This is a challenge for the Labour Health Secretary, Wes Streeting. Why don't you do something about this? Stop importing foreign labour and actually train British doctors and nurses. I don't think that's going to change. But let's get the thoughts of my panel, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, former Labour Party advisor Paul Richards, and associate comment editor at The Telegraph, Poppy Coburn. I'll start with you, Poppy. This is ridiculous. Year after year, we are constantly told the NHS is in crisis, that we need to train more doctors and nurses, that actually we need to have, as Boris Johnson said, we need to speed up visas of nurses coming to Britain. We've got tens of thousands of qualified young people in this country, grade A students, some of the best educations in the world, and we tell them to go away.
I think this is a microcosm of the immigration debate writ large, to be honest with you, because it's the same in basically every industry, and I understand it's particularly frustrating with doctors because we spend so much money educating them for 7 years. But here's what happens. What will happen is people don't want to pay high enough wages, even though the market should correct it to that rate. You'll have to pay higher wages so you can attract more people into a job. And so what will happen is the people in this industry will go to government and say, we need more immigration, OK, because it's an easy thing to do, it drives wages down, it means that you don't have to go out there and actually search for the labourers yourself. So what happens is the government always chooses to pull the lever that says more immigration, more immigration, more immigration, and that's been happening in the NHS now for a very, very, very long time. And it's having some very negative consequences. So it's not just the fact that half of now graduate doctors can't actually find a job, it's the fact that many of them are having to go abroad. We saw this with the new emigration figures. We've already had 3,000 doctors this year go to Australia because the wages are better and frankly they're treated better over there. It's very, and you know, there aren't even jobs for them, so why would they not go? There's also the problem that a lot of foreign doctors, because we have been so desperate to bring them over, we've massively lowered standards, whether that be on English comprehension or whether or not their qualifications are actually totally correct. And we can see this in real life consequences. If you are a foreign trained doctor, you are vastly more likely to commit some form of medical malpractice. People actually lose their lives because of this short-termist thinking. So I think it really sums up nicely just what happens when a country becomes addicted to mass immigration. You know, everybody actually loses out in the end. The only people who benefit in the very short term are those who just want to bring those wages down.
And this is where it is. Poppy summarised it beautifully there. It is really about this nationwide conversation we've been having for such a long time in Britain about capping immigration and saying, actually, why don't we just do more here in Britain? We're a highly sophisticated, highly educated country. We have good standards, and we're constantly having to lower those standards, lower the wages, and now we've got doctors on strike. They're striking because this and multiple successive governments have been addicted to cheap labour. That's what I think it is. That's what it boils down to.
Let's have it right. The NHS is one of the most woke corporations probably in Europe, I think it's one of the biggest employers in Europe as well. Now, if I go to the doctor, I want someone that's going to speak clear English to me, and I want a doctor that has the highest qualifications of UK standards. What we're getting now is, as you say, we're getting medical professionals from Nigeria, from Pakistan, that we can't really check. Now, I quickly had a look before we come on air. In 2025, there was a poll, and there was dozens of people that were banned in other countries, lost their licences, yet the UK NHS will take them on. There was one that lost his US licence for having sex with a patient. There was a radiologist that lost their licence in Sweden and Norway because they couldn't read scans and they couldn't do the readings properly. Now, as Poppy said, people will die because of this, and it's all on this woke altar, you know, oh, we've got to embrace everyone from abroad. What is the point, as you say, of training and spending money, training Brits up, when we're not going to use them? Something's got to change soon.
I totally agree, Adam. Now, listen, Paul, before you attack me, because I'm not just pointing the finger at Labour here, I'm also pointing the finger, and I think very firmly, at Boris Johnson, might I add. I think he's been one of the biggest causes, and Shabana Mahmood was right to call that a ridiculous visa out and flooding the country with people who weren't actually helping improve the NHS in any way. Why is it successive governments of both colours are addicted to destroying the NHS? They constantly want more money from us, constantly tell us is in crisis, and they wonder why, well, they won't train British people to look after our most valuable institution.
I mean, 1.5 million people work for the NHS, and 4/5 of those are from the UK. When the NHS was established in 1948, to expand as fast as it did, you needed those Irish nurses, people from the Caribbean, India, Pakistan and so on, to expand at the rate it had to. But now it is, I think, at a point where Wes Streeting is addressing this. We need to have more homegrown doctors and nurses, and we can't rely on taking them from elsewhere, not least because it damages the healthcare systems of the countries from whom we are nicking all the best doctors and nurses. So I think there's a social justice argument there as well.
What is he doing?
Well, I think we are going to... Well, once this strike is settled, I think we have to look very seriously about the pipeline, how we train, reward and encourage young people to come into...
He's calling them moaning minis at the moment. He's not exactly going into
the BMA has been
reconciliatory tone.
The BMA is a very powerful trade union, and it's been captured by a left-wing clique, and it needs to be taken down.
I agree with that.
Right.
But if we're saying when this crisis, we're going to only deal with this when the crisis is over, but like, when's that? Well, this crisis has been going on. This is the third strike, is it? Not.
By the way, I also think this ties into a kind of uncomfortable reality that no one wants to acknowledge, which is it is true that our doctors aren't paid very well, considering they have to go through that 7-year period. That is true.
They're all going to Australia, aren't they? Because they're better paid.
You cannot have the National Health Service, you cannot have a socialised healthcare model and get the wages that these sorts of people are demanding. And that's, by the way, the main reason why we keep importing doctors from overseas. Is because the government is trying to keep costs down. Because if it can't keep costs down, it's going to have to go to the taxpayer and raise taxes yet again. So we need to have a serious conversation in this country. And do we actually pay our doctors properly? Do we get a high-quality service? And can we actually do that under the current model of the NHS?
But the better answer is actually preventative healthcare. So we need the NHS less because we're all looking after ourselves more, and that's about diet, exercise, and taking care, not just pumping people full of statins and Ozempic and all the rest of it. You know, taking a bit more care for ourselves. We won't need the NHS as much.
Adam, on Poppy's point, because I think this is really important, do you think the British public would be behind paying doctors and nurses more? I think actually the NHS should be its own tax code. I think we should have it. It should be sectioned out. It shouldn't be disguised as much of other things. I think we should see how much we contribute to the NHS.
And that's a hypothecated tax, and there's a very good argument.
I'm very in favour of that.
Very
in favour of that. And if we said to the British public, listen, actually, what we want to do is get rid of a lot of these foreign doctors coming in on every year, 8,000, 10,000, 20,000 of them. We want to replace them with highly qualified British doctors and nurses. Do you think the British public would be up for paying more?
If it was framed right. So if you know, I've got the and I'm annoyed with doctors that are striking because it's costing lives. They knew the money that they was going to get before they went into the job. I think after a 29% increase, if you're still striking, you shouldn't be in the medical profession, in my opinion. Let's just remember the NHS has a middleman for a middleman. You know, middle office. There's probably hundreds of thousands of jobs that shouldn't be in the NHS. I'd rather they go. And I would rather nurses come in, British nurses as well. Unemployment's at a 5-year high. Let's get some normal, average Brits and put them in the NHS, put them to work, people that want to help people. And yes, the public would support that. But at the moment, no.
My cousin is a nurse. She's been a nurse for, well, I think it must be the best part of 20 years now. When she first finished studying, she had to work in Asda. I think it was for 4 years. This is a highly qualified woman, incredible at what she does, and she had to work at Asda for all that time. This is why we lose such good talent in this country, and I can guarantee you it wasn't be that much more that Australia are offering these people. They're offering them better standards, yes, probably a nicer environment, but, you know, it just baffles me that these qualified people...
Before Poppy comes in, just to say, you heard Wakizaki this week saying we need to import people to white people's bums.
I know.
I mean, unbelievable, disgraceful thing.
I was incensed by that last night.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But there's also the point that, like, so we make our nurses go get a university degree. We make our doctors do the longest training period in Europe. We have to train for 7 years to be a doctor, and then you don't even get full wages at the end of that. To then tell those people that you're not even going to have a job waiting for you at the end. It's a problem of over-regulation where we make our own doctors and nurses go through these incredibly rigorous processes to actually get the job, and then we get there, they pay them a rubbish wage, they don't even have job security. You know, this is not something that West Streeting can fix just by taking on the BMA or trying to track down on the visa problem. You need to look at entirely from a top-down system how the NHS is run and how you're going to sustainably run it in the future. And no one is actually brave enough to say that it's not sustainable at the moment.
No, someone's going to have to do it. The Labour Party said they were going to get rid of a lot of this bureaucracy. I think it seems to have just moved from one part of the building to the next from what we're hearing. Adam, do you want a final word?
Just that I think if you're a frontline NHS worker, a nurse or someone really in there helping people or a carer, if they're on under 50,000 a year, give them a discounted tax code. I think the public would be behind that all the way. Because when you hear pay rises, people think, where's the money going to come from? If you give them a better tax code, you know, maybe more people want to go and do that. I think that would be more sensible.
Not a bad idea. Lots of ideas here. Maybe you should be tuning in, I hope, Health Secretary. Well, look, we were just talking about Zach Polanski a minute ago. He would say he's misrepresented. That's what he said on X as well, by the way, just so we're...
Well, I heard him say it, Alex, you know what I mean?
No, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying that's what he would say. Department of Health and Social Care spokesperson said this. Internationally trained doctors play an important role in the NHS, but the health service has become too reliant on overseas recruitment and homegrown talent has been neglected for too long. That's why our 10-year health plan sets an ambitious target to reduce international recruitment, prioritising UK medical graduates and other doctors who have worked in the NHS for a significant period for speciality posts. We will reach into our communities to build a homegrown workforce fit for the future. OK. Right, well, it's time now for the Great British Giveaway, and it's your chance to win our biggest cash prize of the year, an incredible 85 grand. Here's all the details.
This is your chance to become our biggest cash prize winner to date with an incredible £85,000 to be won. That's right, £85,000 in totally tax-free cash could be making its way from our bank account to yours. It would be like having over £7,000 per month extra to play with each month for a whole year. That could be you with your feet up, safe in the knowledge that 2026 is on us. £85,000 is a massive amount of money, and it could be yours. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 9th of February 2026. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
All right, well, the Home Office admits 170 terrorists can't be deported from Britain due to human rights laws. That's coming up next on Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Tell you what, we've got a story about potholes now that is just, ridiculous. Fed up residents in a quiet cul-de-sac in Banbury in Oxfordshire say they've been abandoned after being told that it could take 103 years to have their pothole-riddled road resurfaced. 103 years.
Could not believe it. Absolutely farcical. Anyway, the locals on Horsham Close say some of the potholes are like craters, adding it's yet another sign of Britain's crumbling infrastructure.
Yeah, we're going to speak now to pothole campaigner Mark Morrell, often known as just Mr. Pothole. I say just Mr. Pothole. My goodness.
Yeah, it's terrible. They've used a figure from the Alarm Survey. That's a survey, a report that shows just how bad our roads are, and used an average figure. How naive or stupid, really, to actually put a figure in there rather than say it'll be done as and when, you know. I know the particular road, because the main road, Sussex Drive, that it comes off of, I campaigned some years ago, got it resurfaced. Last year, I actually used some AI as a free app called Stan the App and drove around the 34 miles of Banbury on the main routes and identified 1,500 severe defects on their main routes. So the side roads, a number of those cul-de-sacs are well outside their life. If you look at the average road, it lasts about 20 to 25 years. And in the same report, in 15 years' time, 52% of all the country's roads will be structurally unsound, and therefore we've got a major problem coming up. And it just reflects the attitude, really, from politicians and authorities that we have to accept to manage decline.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back, everybody. 170 foreign nationals are reportedly living in the UK under restrictions but can't be booted out. More than half have been involved in terrorism or extremism-related activities. We're told this is due to human rights lawyers using every trick under the sun to stop dangerous foreign nationals from being deported. Well, restrictions on terrorists usually include electronic tagging, enforced residence, curfews and limits online activity. But there's no indication how many of the 170 foreign nationals are subject to measures of this kind. Joining me to discuss this issue is the Director of Destination Dover, Jack Hadfield. Jack, thanks for joining me this evening. This is another baffling story, isn't it? Because British people and the government have pledged time and time again that they're going to get rid of these people, but they're still living in the country. Why is that?
Well, it's just insane, isn't it? I think this is another indication of just how broken our asylum system and overall immigration system is. You know, if you look what America is doing right now, they've started deporting people who don't support American values. You know, the people who've spoken out against immigration, the immigration crackdowns at ICE, for example. The Trump administration has gone, look, you know, you have a right to free speech. You know, you have constitutional rights in America, but there is no guaranteed right to live in this country. It's a privilege. So they can do that with people who are even against criticising cracking down on mass migration. But here, we've got foreign terrorists running around in our streets and the government says, oh, our hands are tied. It's frankly ridiculous.
We've seen tough talk from the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, but we've seen tough talk from other Home Secretaries prior to the Labour Party being in power. Why is it we never seem to get on top of this? Is it an establishment sort of stitch-up to keep people like this in the country? Because we seem to cow or bend over backwards for human rights lawyers and all these human rights of people that, frankly, put British citizens, good, law-abiding citizens, that puts their lives at risk. Why? Why do we do that so much, Jack? Is it we just become so Blair right now that we can't go back?
I think it's a mindset. I think a lot of people in government and the realm of law have this sort of understanding of like the rule of law as this sort of Nicene Creed. This block of things that says, oh, there is some tiny little regulation or piece of legislation here or there. Therefore, this must be set in stone forever. We have to follow the rules. But if there was a law that said it's okay to kill people, that wouldn't make it good. But these people worship just the law as this sort of objective body of truth and justice, when actually there are so many terrible pieces of legislation on the books, namely the Human Rights Act, we're obviously part of the UN Refugee Convention, that frankly should just be immediately abolished. But the government and people in Parliament, they think for some reason that they can't do this. They have the power to do this. There's an online meme which is very true about this. You can just do things. There is an easy switch to flick to solve most of the problems in this country, but Parliament literally just they believe that their hands are tied when they actually aren't.
Trump's proven when there's a will, there's a way, hasn't he?
Exactly.
Let me bring in the rest of my panel here. Adam, I'll just come straight to you. Many British people will be looking at the boats coming in. We've been warned by international prime ministers, presidents of foreign countries that actually we don't know who's coming in here, and we should be very worried about who's coming in here. We've seen that some of the, here GBNews, we've reported about some of these people coming into Britain. This will make people even more worried because they come here. It's almost like an incentive to commit a heinous crime, because then we know, oh, you can't be deported. Well, maybe go and look at some terrorist activity. Oh, I can't be deported now because I've got these human rights lawyers and these loopholes on my side.
Look, Alex, I've been talking about illegal immigration for 10 years online and labelled every name under the sun. And now the bad things are happening and people are sitting back and going, oh, maybe he was right. Look, at the end of the day, we have a human rights lawyer as our Prime Minister. So anyone that thinks that anything is going to change under Keir Starmer is away with the fairies. We have a terror watch list of about 50,000 people. Tens of thousands are foreign-born. That says it all. They're coming from somewhere. What about the human rights of the women and girls that have been sexually assaulted or raped in places like Epping? You've been to Epping, where we've covered that. At the end of the day, the Ethiopian man, because it was causing such a furore up and down the country, they fast-tracked him back to Ethiopia. One, there is no war in Ethiopia. Why wasn't he deported straight away anyway? Look, terrorists and criminals are using the Channel situation. clearly to come across. We've had people that were interviewed on the beaches of Calais. They've just come out of prison in France, or they've openly said that we've been in prison in our countries and we've fled here. It's the unknown. They're unchecked, unverified foreign men. And the left lap it up like it's some great, you know, woke thing to get behind. We are putting killers on our streets and no one cares.
So true. But, Paul, the issue here is there's a lot of homegrown terrorism, and we have to deal with that. That's clearly our problem to deal with right now. But where there's foreign nationals, surely they should just be deported, shouldn't they?
I mean, there was arrests in my hometown of Eastbourne over the weekend of far right, and that's what the police called them, terrorists. So, you know, there is terrorism on all sides, it's true. I think when you look at Shabana Mahmood's, what she's doing to speed up the process, to get tough, to work her way around the legal blob that we know does hold all this process up. I think she's somebody of great resolve and somebody will get it fixed. I don't think we should throw the baby out of the bathwater. I think we should be taking our fair share of refugees, with the emphasis on the word of fair.
We already have.
So not more than anyone else, but our fair share as part of the Refugee Convention. And finally, on the American example, I don't think we should be emulating, copying, lauding, or any other word, what's going on in America right now, because I think that's going to lead to imprisonment for some of the actors, and we have no lessons to learn at all from what Trump's doing.
I think you'll be in the minority of the British public at this point in time on that, Paul. I think they look at Donald Trump and they go, oh, my goodness, I wish we had that happening here.
What, people falling asleep in cabinet meetings?
Look,
well, listen...
falling asleep on the wheel, you know.
Well, we'll talk about Trump's health a different day, but go on, Poppy.
I would make it clear that this is not an error in the human rights system. This is by design.
Yes.
This is fundamentally what the human rights conventions exist to do, which is to shield from democratic decision-making the desires of activists, lawyers and judges. Also, to kind of bring in, I think that there's a reason why the public were so against someone like Shabina Begum actually coming back to the UK, and the reason for that is that they understood that the judges who would be, dealing with her crimes, which would be very difficult to actually bring a case against her, right, because we weren't there. These were crimes committed abroad. The fear is she's going to be given a council house. She might be able to re-embed with networks that are homegrown networks that are operating in London of Islamist terrorism. And there's no actually way that your rights, our rights to be safe from terrorism will actually be protected here. So yes, with foreign nationals, it doesn't surprise me at all that we have loads of foreign national terrorists that we can't remove because we've decided that their home destinations are some way unsafe to us. In fact, I'm surprised that the number is not higher, and I'm sure just in terms of people who are coming over on the small boats, we already know that we had Iranian terrorists coming over who could committing terror attacks in the UK. We know that we've had Russian operatives that have been coming over on the small boats and manipulating that for their own causes. So I'd say even one life lost on this, or even the risk of one life being lost, is too many. But again, we don't make our own laws.
Well, judges and lawyers will obviously argue that they're impartial and unbiased. I'll give you the final word on this, Jack. Very briefly, if you don't mind. What do you think the government should do? Are they acting fast enough? Do you think Shabana Mahmood needs to speed up?
Certainly, on deportations overall, we often have seen countries refuse to take back foreign criminals, say Pakistan, for example. The government should be immediately sanctioning these countries, blocking trade with anyone who dares to do that until they take their citizens home. I think it's that simple. The government has the power to do so. The government just needs to act.
As Nicola here on your side says, the government make the laws, they can unmake them. Absolute nonsense. I think she was talking about Paul there. A Home Office spokesperson said this: it's disgraceful that terrorists have been able to stay in the United Kingdom under previous rules. Our new laws will place strict restrictions on foreign nationals that pose a threat, tracking their every move through electronic monitoring and keeping them out of reach of certain people. These laws will also enable us to get terrorists rapidly deported from British soil and keep our country safe. All right, well, look, splashing on the front page of The Guardian, patients at risk as 1 in 7 GP referrals vanish into black hole. We've got black holes in this country, haven't we? And the Daily Mail are saying public no longer trust NHS over dementia care. How important. We were talking about that story tonight, eh? We'll be discussing this right after the break, alongside all of tomorrow's breaking front pages. Stay with us.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. It's still pretty unsettled in the eastern Mediterranean over the next few days. There will be some heavy showers and thunderstorms around too. But across Iberia and actually most of the Canary Islands and Madeira, it's largely fine, and there'll be plenty of sunshine on Monday. Just a few showers for northwestern parts of Spain and Portugal. Sunny for most of Italy too, but we run into more in the way of showers and stronger winds pushing down across parts of Greece and into Turkey. But overall, over the next few days, there's lots of sunshine to be enjoyed and it will feel fairly warm.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there, a very good evening to you. Hope you've managed to have a lovely weekend, although I'm sure many of us probably retreated to indoor activities at some points today. We've been seeing rain sweeping its way across the UK. It is continuing its journey north-eastwards, heading towards the Northern Isles, so quite a wet evening to come here, but there will be some clearer spells arriving behind that. Another band of showers, though, sweeping their way in from the west. These could be quite heavy with some hail and thunder in the mixture. Underneath all of that, though, it will be a fairly mild night, some of us even holding up in double-digit figures. But for parts of northeastern Scotland, where we have some clearer skies overnight, we may just drop down towards low single figures, maybe just about freezing in some very sheltered rural valleys. We could still see a few rumbles of thunder on that system as it continues through across Monday morning, so do be aware when you are travelling to work. But there will be some brighter, drier intervals moving in behind that as well. Potentially, there are a few outbreaks of rain still lingering for some areas of England and Wales, and generally the cloud will tend to build from the south as we move throughout the day. Any of that sunshine turning hazier, and generally those skies much greyer as we head towards the end of the day. We do hold on to a fairly notable breeze across many areas as well. The temperature's still a touch above average for the time of year. They'll be ranging between 8 and 9 degrees Celsius in the north, 13 and 14 further south. Overnight, though, into Tuesday, our attention will increasingly turn to an area of low pressure that is going to move in from the southwest. This has the potential to bring much more disruption with its quite heavy pulses of rain swinging their way through and some very strong winds, and there are wind and rain warnings issued for parts of Wales, southwest England, as well as northwestern England throughout the day on Tuesday. Another wind warning comes into force across the northwest of Scotland for the second half of Tuesday and into Wednesday. There could well be gales, severe gales around at times. Flooding disruption is possible at times, so do stay up to date with the forecast on that.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Alex Armstrong tonight on GB News. I've got your front pages hot off the press. Should we go through them together? The front page of The Guardian. Patients at risk as 1 in 7 GP referrals vanish into black hole. The Independent. Probation chief warns service is in perpetual crisis. The Metro. Pepper spray attack chaos at Heathrow. Just some updated lines on this from the Met Police. Officers were called out at 11 minutes past 8 this morning today to multi-storey car park at Terminal 3 following reports of a group of people being assaulted. I'll bring you more on that in just a minute or so. The FT. Fed set to cut the rate. Let me start again. FT, Fed set to rate cut despite splits over prospects for economy under Donald Trump. The Daily Mail, public no longer trust NHS over dementia care. And leading the gbnews.com website tonight, Labour's Islamophobia definition risks harming women's rights, ex-equality watchdog chief warns, and Zara Sultana demands a referendum on the monarchy following calls for its abolishment. All right, let's get the thoughts of my panel. Do you know, I'd really like to start on this monarchy stuff because I think this is more bonkers. I don't even know if this is your party policy, whether Zara Sultana is just making it up as she goes along now. Do we think we need to have a conversation about the monarchy at this point in time, Adam?
Look, my opinion has changed quite a lot since the Queen died.
Yeah.
I say it all the time. I used to sit there and watch the Queen with my nan. It was a lovely thing. I love the fact that it's part of our heritage, our culture. But, you know, I cannot stand Prince Harry. Prince Andrew, I don't even want to talk about in case I get in legal trouble.
He's not a prince anymore, just
right.
say,
Okay, yeah. So
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor.
It's no, I would always want to keep the royal family, but things have to change in certain aspects, you know. But Zara Sultana talking about this. Let's remember, Keir Starmer was on record a few years ago wanting the same, and then suddenly he's changed. So I don't know if they say this, it's a trendy left-wing movement to get behind, but the nation won't be behind this at all.
Liz Truss also famously, back in her day, I think as a Liberal Democrat, wanted to abolish the monarchy. That's an interesting little tidbit for you there. Paul, should we abolish the monarchy?
Well, the Queen in '92 made that famous speech where she said no institution should be free of scrutiny from those that support it and those that don't. And I've always taken that as my watchword. It shouldn't be free from scrutiny. There should be transparency on the financing, the political powers, the grace and favour homes, all these aspects of it. I think the public have a right to know about and a comment on. We're nowhere near abolition. I mean, the overwhelming support is there for the royal family, even after the last few years, and even some of the scandals to which Adam alludes. You know, there is still rock solid support for it. And interestingly, if you did have a referendum, as Zara Sultana is suggesting in a bid to get headlines, by the way, but if there was a referendum, I think it would show 80-90% support for the monarchy.
This is interesting, Poppy, because Prince Harry, he was on a late-night American show, Colbert, I think it's called, and in that show, he took a pop at Donald Trump. He basically said America's elected a king. It's very interesting because that's a jab not only at being a monarch, which he is in line still in the throne to be, by the way, if something serious were to happen with the current royal family, but also it's a political intervention, isn't it? There's a no kings movement. And I think what the royal family need to do, if they want to survive for the long term, is be much tougher about slip-ups like that and go, do you know what? You do that, your title's gone.
I mean, every member of the royal family is political. I mean, King Charles himself has intervened in politics multiple times. He's quite left-wing. I don't think people realise this, but he intervened over the Rwanda scheme. He was leaking something to the Times newspaper, saying what he really thought about it. He thought it was appalling. So, you know, I'm not a royalist myself. I'm sure that's coming across in the way I'm talking. I'm too right-wing. I am too right-wing to be a royalist. I've crossed over the threshold. There you go. I wouldn't say that, but...
So you think we should have a referendum on it, Bob?
No, well, this is the thing I say was so hilarious, right? Zara Sultana, socialist radical, and she's not even brave enough to come out and say abolish the monarchy. She's like, let's do a consultation first. Like, seriously, we're going to nationalise the entire economy. You know, every time you try and borrow a lemsip from your next door neighbour, you're going to have to go through a central council. But when it comes to getting rid of the monarchy, well, let's all just calm down and have another referendum. It's hysterical.
Right, but what do you think? Should we have one?
Oh, I wouldn't have the monarchy, no. But I know my views are not in the majority. I understand.
I think the argument is always, if you were designing a state from scratch, you know, with a blank piece of paper, would you have a House of Lords? Would you have a hereditary monarchy? Would you have all this weird and wonderful stuff of our constitution? Probably not.
Can I challenge that?
But our constitution has evolved over 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Its stability is because it has evolved, and it's not revolutionary, it's evolutionary. And you have to get behind that. And that's what makes it brilliant, is that it has come down the decades and handed to us from our predecessors in a way that we wouldn't design, but it works.
I'm just challenging that for a second, because, yes, we could... I think when you do start from scratch, you go, oh, well, let's have an elected president, let's have an elected prime minister, let's have a cabinet, and all these things. Yeah. However, that's all... You're meant to be doing that for stability and unity, right? What we see time and time again with those democracies, actually, is they're more divided than ever, because people become more and more radicalised over time to be on two extreme sides.
For every Mandela, you get a Mugabe, don't you? And that's the problem with the elected president model.
Yes.
And, you know, there are plenty of good socialist countries like Norway, Sweden, that also have monarchies. You know, the two things can exist. An egalitarian state can coexist with a monarchy as well.
Surely the problem here, right, is that most people quite like the idea of the monarchy. They like the history, they like the tradition. What they don't realise is that the monarchy still have political influence. I think it would actually be quite easy to just tweak it and just remove that remaining political influence.
Yeah.
Go on, I want to
know what Adam's got.
I've got to say, because we're on the eve of his coronation, I said this is a woke king. I'm not a fan. I think if the royal family really want to continue and get support back, he would step down and William and Kate would step up because they seem very popular. I mean, she's really sort of relatable. She's beautiful. I think it would create a lot of support around the world as well. And
I think they'll be great.
That's what they need to do.
I think they'll be great. I mean, look, King Charles is going to be an old
generation. The point of a hereditary institution is...
Well, no, you can't.
Yeah,
He's not well. You can't
he
teach
believes
them,
he's been chosen by God, and then you have to live out your life like his late mother did, you know?
He could step down.
Well, I just think, I think when you see William was, widely credited with being the man to push Andrew out of the royal family, the man to push for the title being removed. And I think we do need that radical king to come in and actually go further on the modernisation. I don't like some of his proposals about getting rid of some of the pomp ceremony. I like that stuff.
The only constant in royal history is change. They've always managed to adapt to the circumstances.
Yeah, well, let's see if they can survive another 1,000 years. It'll be 2066, they'll be celebrating technically 1,000 years of rule in Britain since William the Conqueror. Anyway, we're getting a bit carried away. Front page of the Express, big one here. Loophole gives grooming gangs easy access to children. That's going to send shivers down the spine of the nation tonight. That's next on Alex Armstrong Tonight.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I have the story here today. The brain has 5 eras in it, and the adult mode doesn't start until the early 30s.
Yes. What it says is that rather than a sort of steady progression, your brain sort of changes at particular points in your life. So you've got phases of your life. So you change at 9 is the first point where your brain changes. Then it's 32 when adolescence finishes in terms of your brain, according to the study. Then you've got 66, which is where I've just got past. And then you've got 83. And
what happens in 66? I'm asking for someone.
Asking for a friend.
You're asking for a personal reason. I'm afraid we start having less effective brains past 66 is what the consequence is. Some of the neural functions don't work as well, so it says here. Of course, Eamon, there are exceptions, such as you and me, perhaps.
No, I know there's plenty of things going wrong, yeah.
But 32 is the strongest overall shift in trajectory, it says here. This is a study that's been carried out, but I think Cambridge University have done
What
this.
happens at 32? Asking for a friend.
You end up becoming more of an adult than you were when you were 31, apparently.
That's good. I became an adult last week.
Yeah, I know.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I'm surprised they haven't, just made a discrepancy between male and female brains in this, because I don't think men ever grow up. I think the adult, wouldn't you? Maybe 66 is the way that men mature.
If they ever do.
Because your birthday's what, December the 3rd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming up, Eamon.
But I agree with you about not growing up. I mean, people say, what do you want for Christmas? What do you want for your birthday?
He wants a big burger from the Metro.
Men like toys.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's go through some more of these breaking front pages. A lot of very, very different front pages tonight. Let's start with the Times, shall we? States will encourage all staff to join union. Oh, yes, the Labour takeover is very much here. Let's have a quick look at the Sun, shall we? Harry, this is a royal exclusive. We haven't got it for you right now, but we will bring it to you on your screen in a moment. It's a royal exclusive here. Harry gun cop U-turn. Home Office review guard ban could pave the way for King visit. Prince Harry has won a Home Office review of the decision to strip him him of his 24-hour armed police protection on visits to the UK. That's quite a big royal story. That's quite a big royal story. So we'll come back to it. Now, let's go to the front page of The Express. This is the one you've been waiting for. Loophole gives grooming gangs easy access to children. I want to stay with this front page now. So, grooming gangs can exploit a gap in child protection to access vulnerable girls, has been claimed. Unregistered emergency carers are able to operate on a short-term basis with no regulatory. A Daily Express investigation was told it would mean children needing urgent protection could be placed directly into the hands of predators who will stop at nothing to gain access to their victims. Adam,
disgusting.
How does this keep happening? How on earth are we in this situation? We know this goes on, and the government again have got a loophole.
Look, for me, the higher ups, whoever they are allowing this, because you cannot be that stupid and you cannot be that. You know, I don't even know what to say. Careless, negligent. But look, let's also remember that there are people that have been raped by these grooming gangs, and once the people come out of prison, they're allowed to see the children if they've had babies by them. The UK is letting down women and children all the time, and it happens too often, you know, to be a mistake. For me, it's a really horrible world, and this country has a lot to answer for grooming gangs.
Paul?
Well, it's grim, isn't it? I mean, it's really disgusting what's being reported here in The Express, but I would say it looks like, from what we can read, a case for better regulation, stronger regulation, so that this sort of thing can't happen. And I suspect this is good journalism calling it out in a way that ministers should act upon.
Yeah, Poppy, what really disturbs me about this is that it's down to journalists to figure out these loopholes, when actually we're paying civil servants good money to be figuring and thinking about these things. Why is it always leaving it down to the free press?
Well, I mean, this is yet another example, right, where there's a part of government that's been allowed to turn into like a short-termist crisis. And this is exactly what it is. It's short-termist crisis. The care system in this country is an absolute disgrace. I know this from people who are actually working within it. But it's also a problem that comes from the fact that we know that there are these gangs that are operating up and down the country, and they're allowed to do so essentially with impunity, right? And that it's not just the sex crimes that they're involved in. They're also involved in the drugs trade. They're also involved with racketeering. If you actually crack down on these people hard, then you wouldn't have to be constantly safeguarding people. It's the fact that we let these men run around, run riot, control their towns, and that the government has no plan to actually deal with them because we don't actually believe in punishing people anymore. That's a problem.
We were just talking, I mean, it's funny because a lot of the stories on the front pages tonight have been relevant to the things we've been discussing in this show. We don't know what the front page is going to be, so it just so happens we're clearly in touch with what the mainstream press are talking about. We also were talking about a grooming gang story earlier on, Adam, in our show. This inquiry is taking too long. We haven't heard a peep from the government. It all just stinks, doesn't it? It all just stinks.
It does stink, and I said it up there. Labour are in this grooming gang and rape gang scandal up to their necks, and they know it will expose them as a party, and it will expose people linked to their party. That is why they don't want a national inquiry. If it wasn't for some independent journalists, and GBNews, remember, this wouldn't have hit the headlines and hit Elon Musk and gone around the world. It's because of those people's work and this channel that suddenly the grooming gangs is in the spotlight again, and the Labour government hate that.
Paul?
Well, it's a Labour government that's actually delivering the national inquiry. So,
kicking and screaming.
But no, not kicking and screaming.
Oh,
with great
Paul,
alacrity.
that's rubbish.
But
Sorry,
let me hang on.
You have been kicking and screaming into this.
But to keep saying it's about Labour, I think, is letting down the victims in places that were councils were not Labour. Right.
Predominantly,
you have
they
to
was
say
Labour
the system. But those that were not, you're saying it's just Labour. I'm saying all victims have to be looked after equally, regardless who was running the council at the time. You know, if there is systemic failure, it's across the whole of that system of social care and local authorities.
But the majority of those authorities were Labour, yes or no?
You're making it a party political issue, and it's not.
It is.
It's about systemic failure, exploitation and class.
Right, we'll talk about this more throughout the next part of the show, because we've got a whole boatload more of news to bring you, including the front page of The Telegraph, who are leading with this. Right-wingers branded danger to children. Can you believe it? They'll do anything these days, won't they? That's up next on Alex Armstrong Tonight, late edition. But first, we're going to get your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, a very good evening to you. Hope you've managed to have a lovely weekend, although I'm sure many of us probably retreated to indoor activities at some points today. We've been seeing rain sweeping its way across the UK. It is continuing its journey north eastwards, heading